If you love real horror stories that send chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe. This is just the beginning. I live in a quiet rural town in Wyoming, surrounded by endless highways and empty fields. There's a small gas station off Route 91, the only place open 24/7 within miles. It's about a 20-minute drive from my house, or 15 if I'm speeding. And since my sleep schedule is a complete disaster, I've been there more times than I can count. I usually go around midnight to grab a snack or a coffee. The place is old, half-lit, with buzzing fluorescent lights and a vending machine that sounds like it's growling. Last week, something happened there. Something that I still can't stop thinking about. It was around 2 a.m., and I'd been up late coding on my laptop. You know that moment when hunger hits you out of nowhere? 1 second you're fine, the next you feel like you haven't eaten in a week? That's what made me grab my keys and head to the gas station. The highway was empty, just my headlights cutting through the fog and the occasional road sign flashing by. When I pulled into the station, it was completely dead. No other cars, no customers. I walked inside, ordered a breakfast sandwich, and started pacing around while waiting. The caffeine in my system always makes me restless, so I just kept walking up and down the aisles. That's when I saw him. At the far end of the store, near the refrigerators, someone was sitting cross-legged on the floor, facing the fridge. Not opening it, not grabbing anything, just staring. At first, I thought maybe he dropped something, but he didn't move. He was just sitting there, perfectly still. He wore a brown coat and faded jeans. His back was turned to me. Something about it didn't feel right. I took a few steps to the side, pretending to browse the chips, and peeked down the aisle to get a better look. The second I turned the corner, he snapped his head toward me, so fast it made me freeze. His eyes were wide open, unblinking. His lips were trembling like he was freezing, except it was warm inside. His posture was twisted, tense, like his body wasn't sitting naturally. And the way he stared, it wasn't anger, it wasn't confusion. It was empty, like no one was behind those eyes. We locked eyes for maybe 3 seconds. Then I turned away, pretending I didn't see anything, and went back to the counter, trying to act normal. The cashier called my number. I grabbed my food and got out fast. As I stepped into the parking lot, I finally exhaled. You know that kind of breath you take when you realize you've been holding it for too long? Yeah, that. I got into my car, started the engine, and pulled toward the exit. That's when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Someone was running, full speed, across the parking lot. I looked closer. Brown coat. It was him. He ran from the store entrance toward a pickup truck parked at the far end of the lot. He jumped inside. I didn't wait to find out what he was doing. I hit the gas and got onto the highway. But a few minutes later, I noticed headlights behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it, until they started getting closer. Too close. I thought it might be a cop, so I slowed down a little, but there were no flashing lights. Just the same pickup truck. My stomach dropped. The truck sped up, fast, until it was right behind me. Then it started flashing its high beams over and over and honking. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, heart pounding. Was he trying to mess with me? Or was this something worse? I pressed the gas pedal. 80 miles an hour. 90. The high lights stayed right on me. Then he rammed the back of my car. The sound? Metal crunching, tires screeching. It was pure chaos. I fought to keep control of the wheel, but he hit me again. At that moment, I realized
This guy wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to kill me. Something inside me just switched. I stopped thinking and started reacting. I swerved hard to the left, slammed the brakes. The truck flew past me, lost control, and spun off the highway into the field. I didn't wait. I didn't look back. I just kept driving, all the way home. When I got there, I called the police immediately. They took my statement and said they'd check the gas station's cameras. It's been a week, and I haven't heard anything. My car still has dents from where he hit me, and every time I drive that road, I can't stop scanning my rearview mirror, half expecting to see those headlights again.
Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because the next story might be the creepiest one yet. I was 28 and working a weird late-night delivery job, hauling refurbished electronics and custom PC parts for a small last-mile startup. The routes were long, the schedules erratic, and sometimes I'd drive straight through the night across empty stretches of the Southwest no one else wanted to touch. This particular run was the final leg from Tucson to Roswell. It was around 1 in the morning, and I was winding through a lonely stretch of Route 82, skirting the edge of the Lincoln National Forest. If you've never driven that road at night, it's hard to explain how isolated it feels. Narrow, poorly lit, with nothing but scrub and stars for miles. The GPS alternatives added hours to the trip, so most drivers just take Route 82 and hope for the best. I was listening to a true crime podcast when I rounded a bend and saw a red hatchback pulled awkwardly onto the gravel shoulder, hazards blinking. I slowed out of habit. As my headlights swept over it, I saw a woman standing by the passenger side, holding her phone high like she was trying to catch a signal. My first instinct was to keep driving. You hear the stories, stranded cars can be setups. But then I thought about my sister or my girlfriend and how I'd want someone to stop for them. I also wasn't completely helpless. I keep a small handgun, a Glock 43, tucked under my steering column. Not exactly company policy, but in places like this, it felt like common sense. I cracked the window a couple inches and called out. The woman, maybe mid-20s, rushed over, frantic. She tried my passenger door, which was locked, and told me her car died and she couldn't get a signal. Her voice jittered like she was seriously shaken or maybe on something. I hesitated, then unlocked the door. She dove in, muttering a sloppy "thank you," barely looking at me. As we pulled back onto the road, I asked the usual questions. Did you hit something? Did the engine cut out? She kept deflecting, begging me to just drive. The whole thing felt off, and I was leaning toward telling her to get out when I glanced back toward her hatchback. A man stepped out from behind the car like he'd been hiding there the whole time. Adrenaline spiked. I looked up, and there was another figure standing in the road, about 50 feet ahead of us. He had something long in his hands, a bat or a pipe, I couldn't tell at first. He started moving toward the car. That's when my survival instincts kicked in. I floored it. The woman whipped around and started yelling, then fumbled in her purse like she was reaching for something. I knew immediately what she was doing. Before she could pull anything out, I shouted at her to freeze and made my gun visible, resting it on the steering wheel so she could see it without me pointing it at her. She stopped. She went completely still and stared straight ahead with a blank, unreadable expression. We were less than 30 minutes from Artesia, so I kept driving, every nerve on edge. When I pulled into the gas station in Artesia, there were 2 big rigs in the lot and a couple of truckers milling around. I told her to get out. She refused at first, stammering some excuse I don't even remember. I leaned over, yanked the passenger door open, and basically shoved her onto the pavement. She fell and started yelling nonsense. One of the truckers jogged over, and I could already see how the scene would look from his angle, me pulling a woman out of a car. I gave a curt warning about her intentions and peeled out of the lot before the trucker could reach us.
I drove to another station down the road and started filling my tank, hands still shaking. Once the pump was going, I walked back to inspect the passenger seat. Between the cushions, I found a burner phone battery and a sealed pack of zip ties. I don't want to imagine what she might have been reaching for. I tossed the items in the trash and left. I never reported it, not to the company and not to the police. Part of that was pride or fear. I didn't want to explain why I was carrying a gun or why I'd forced someone out of my vehicle. Part of it was practicality. But looking back, being armed that night likely saved my life. A few minutes after I'd driven away, I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was a truck or a cop, so I slowed. The headlights closed the gap unnervingly quick. When the vehicle was close enough, I realized it wasn't a police cruiser. It was the same old pickup from the gravel shoulder, the one the man had jumped into. The truck was aggressive. It flashed high beams and started honking. My heart dropped. I tried to put distance between us. I pushed the accelerator, 80, then 90 miles an hour, but the truck stayed on me, riding right behind like it wanted to push me off the road. Then it hit my rear bumper once, a hard metallic crunch, and again, harder. Metal screamed. The car bounced and fishtailed. I fought to keep the wheel steady, every second a blur of lights and noise. He rammed me again. That's when it hit me. This wasn't some roadside prank. He wanted to kill me. Pure animal fear took over. I swerved hard to the left and stomped on the brakes. The truck flew past, out of control, and spun off the highway into an empty field with a violent crash. I didn't watch the wreckage. I drove. I drove like the truck would pop back up behind me at any moment. When I finally got home, I called the cops and filed a report. They said they'd pull footage from the gas station cameras. It's been a week, and I haven't heard anything. The dents in my bumper are still there. Every time I take that road now, I find myself glancing into the rearview mirror, scanning for headlights that shouldn't be there, half convinced I'll see that truck bearing down on me again.
You think you've heard scary stories before? Subscribe now. You'll want to stay for what's coming. This happened about 3 years ago when my fiance Ethan and I were driving cross-country from Nevada to Tennessee. Our route wasn't the fastest, but Ethan wanted to take the scenic way through small, forgotten towns and empty stretches of highway. The worst part was this long, lonely section of Highway 56 in western Oklahoma, miles and miles of nothing but open fields. We'd been driving all day, and I had fallen asleep somewhere around dusk. When I woke up, the car was slowing down near a tiny gas station, one of those old ones with flickering neon lights. Ethan said he was going to fill up and grab something to eat. I decided to use the restroom, probably my last chance for hours. Inside, it smelled faintly of oil and coffee. The cashier, an older man in a faded trucker cap, didn't even look up when I walked in. The bathrooms were tucked down a narrow hallway in the back. As I pushed open the women's restroom door, I almost bumped into someone, an older woman stepping out of a stall. She had tangled gray hair, almost wet-looking, and wore foam flip-flops that slapped against the floor with every step. But what stood out most was her thick purple and green winter coat. It was nearly 85 degrees outside. She didn't say a word, just stared at me. Not surprised or annoyed, more like expectant, like she was waiting for me to do something specific. I nodded awkwardly and tried to pass her, but she didn't move right away. Instead of leaving, she turned toward the sinks, but didn't wash her hands, didn't even look in the mirror, just stood there, arms at her sides. Uneasy, I slipped into a stall and locked the door. That's when I realized how stupid I'd been not bringing my phone.
If something went wrong, I couldn't even call Ethan. After a minute, I heard her flip-flops shuffled toward the door, then the sound of it opening and slamming shut. I exhaled until I heard something else. Breathing. Not mine. Hers. She was still in there. She had faked leaving. I sat completely still, not trying to breathe too loud. The silence felt endless. Then, the door opened again. Closed again. Another fake-out. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I unlocked the stall, heart pounding, but the bathroom was empty. I washed my hands fast and left. I lingered near the front until a large man finished paying. I followed him out, just in case. As soon as I stepped outside, I saw her, the woman, standing beside the building, staring straight at me. Something glinted in her hand. I froze. It might have been a knife. Before I could react, she turned and disappeared around the side of the building. I sprinted to our car and jumped in. Ethan looked confused, but when I told him everything, his face turned white. As we pulled onto the highway, I looked back one last time. She was standing at the corner of the station, just watching our car fade into the dark. We never spoke about it again, but I don't stop at small-town gas stations ever. Sometimes, though, when we drive at night, I still see flashes of purple and green in the headlights of passing cars.
If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Subscribe and join us for the next terrifying tale.